waiting, huh?
An elite squad of nano-enhanced soldiers join forces with the faction to put an end to 15 years of unnecessary bloodshed under the brutal dictator Sopot. Red Faction 2.
Alias, my heroic demolitions expert. You are just in time for my announcement to the squad. Soapbot's armies have declared their loyalty to me. I am now Chancellor of the Republic of the Commonwealth.
I don't understand. I thought we supported
The Red Faction, yes, I know. I think we all agree that Echo here is an ass. Where we differ is that you and Tangier support the Red Faction. They would destroy the technology that created us. I will use the nanotechnology as it should be used. I will create an army that cannot be defeated.
We trusted them, hailed them as heroes, but they got the drop on us, opened fire.
Ah, yeah. I witnessed it all.
Hero hid behind his desk.
Seems he didn't have a weapon.
It was symbolic. Our new government would have ushered in an era of peace.
Peace? Then what use would we be? We were created to fight. When Tangier arrives, you three will be declared enemies of the state and publicly executed.
I don't think so. All of you, put down your weapons. I'd kill them all, but Molov's army would be on top of us. There's a passageway behind the banner. Get out of here. Molov has unleashed the Processed and the military on the Red Faction.
Hello there, SteelSnake72 with my Red Faction 2 PS4 playthrough. We are now at level 7 I believe, and well, that cutscene was dramatic, wasn't it? Yeah, so this is we're past the halfway point of the game now, and it's when the game takes a turn tonally and somewhat the same way in the gameplay, because now obviously our squad's betrayed us. The squad mates that we've met before in the first few levels, then are going to become later boss battles. So similar to how Black Ops 3 works, as I've been consistently saying through this playthrough, and I do like this part of the game because you get, it's sort of back to where you're sort of now on the back foot, as I should say, when it comes to sort of the conflict, because obviously you've been with the Red Faction, you've had guys helping you out, you're all together as a squad who can't be beaten by anybody. I mean, you'd even probably give the Foxhound a run for the money from Metal Gear Solid 1. There's another Metal Gear reference in there. But now it changes, you know, with the Red Faction. I like this because it's similar to the... I think this is where it gets a bit similar to the first game. There's even going to be some soundtrack reused in this level at certain points from the first game, which is nice because the first game had a cool soundtrack. Although it doesn't work as well here because it was very specific for Mars, but I like it because it really gives a scale of a battle going on here. You really feel in the thick of it in this level, I think, and it's a really cool level actually. I like this level. I never used to like it as a kid because it's where the game sort of changed and became a bit more like the first one, and I was never a big fan of the first one. Not in comparison to this game anyway. But yeah, it's a pretty straightforward level. You're shooting around it. It very much mixes it up, which is, it's so important in an FPS game to mix things up. And I think it's something that Call of Duty, it has a relatively good grasp on, with having set pieces in this section and this section. But the problem is it's in desperate need of, you know, new sections. Because do you remember when you first did All Gillied Up on COD 4 and how it was the best thing just ever, just because it was so different and unique? Well, you see, that's gone stale now, isn't it? It's in need of a new we need something new, and you get this sort of all gillied up moments, but they've never ever hit the heights of that level ever again, have they? I mean, if we're being serious, they've never managed to quite nail it, because that level is superb. But they've just tried again. I mean, you had Vendetta in World at War, which is similar, I suppose, but never really nailed it, have they? And it's a good moment in All Gillied Up because it's a moment in the game where the pace of the game just drops, and I think this is the Red Faction 1 music here, but I'll listen a bit more, I'll be able to tell you that. But it's because the game at that point in COD 4 has been building up quite steadily, and its pacing has been, it's really solid. You've had the nuclear bomb go off, which is a huge moment in the game. You've just captured Al-Assad, and things are pretty heated at the moment. It's pretty ongoing, but the game just slows it down. It takes a deep breath, and it has a lot more weight to the following chapters when shit really hits the fan and you get the contingency. Because I love everything about Act 3 of Modern Warfare 1. Just such a well-paced game. You know, I know it's only 4 hours long, but they nail the pacing probably better than any other Call of Duty game. I'd have to say, because that quiet time, those 2 levels have all gillied up, and well, one-shot kill's a bit more hectic, but even then, with one-shot kill, it just allows you to take your breath back, like the game does itself in the story, and just forget about things for a few minutes and get you back into your routine and just bring it down before it overloads. Because these days in COD, like especially Infinite Warfare, it's like every 5 seconds there's a nuke going off, and there are some really melodramatic rubbish. This is definitely Red Faction 1 music. I think this plays near the end, possibly during the final boss battle. But this particular video, guys, I didn't want to talk about all gillied up on Call of Duty and pacing. That is a topic I do want to talk about in future, because I think it's such an important thing in games that so many games mess up, pacing in particular and downtime. But I just wanted to talk about Wolfenstein again, guys, because it's obviously a game that's upcoming when I'm recording this, coming out in about a month, I think. I think there was a new trailer that just released, but I was just thinking, I'm wondering if this is a thing that I wonder if this is going to be a trilogy of games, because I was thinking about it, and this second game, it looks like it's all going to be set in America. And I was noticing a lot of similarities between that and Resistance, because obviously Resistance 1, what I love about Resistance 1 is that it's in England, and you kind of know some of the places. I think it starts in York, which isn't too far from me. Not too far anyway, no. And then the second level's in Grimsby, and you go to Manchester, and I think it ends in London, which is pretty obvious, but it's cool either way. And I think you go, where is it, like Cheddar Gorge, sorry. That was a really cool level. You're driving around on the Jeep with like the coolest character ever, like Cartwright. Real shame they never made it into the sequel. And then of course Resistance 2 put you 2 years later when it's America getting invaded, and it's a hell of a lot more. It's so much grander in scale, just because obviously America's a much bigger place and the invasion's a hell of a lot more bigger. I imagine Wolfenstein 2 is going for something similar in that way, and I just wondered, if Wolfenstein plans to be a trilogy or not. If it's because I think that would make sense, wouldn't it? Like 3 games of stopping the Nazis, because it seems to be a thing of games, game development, doesn't it? You will have one game, and if that's a success, you'll get you're probably going to be on odds to get a trilogy, which is why it's so odd, I suppose, we never got a Red Faction 3, because, you know, Red Faction 2 was a success, you know, critically and commercially, I think, anyway. I know it critically did quite well, as we discussed earlier. It had an 84 on Metacritic, but we also discussed the flaws of Metacritic in that same episode, I think episode 4. But regardless, it did well, and I am surprised we never got a Red Faction 3 right off the bat. I have to admit, as a child, I always wondered, when is Red Faction 3 going to come out, but I suppose, where do you take the series? Maybe they just thought they couldn't stretch it out for another game. You know, they couldn't do anything more with the setting. I mean, they couldn't move back to Mars, so we had to wait a long time till we got Red Faction Guerrilla, and calling that Red Faction 3 feels like a cop-out. It's its own complete entity with phone again, with just odd references to Red Faction 1. And we're getting a very enemy at the gates moment there, where is it Ron Perlman that like jumps across? I think, is it Ron Perlman? It's been a while since we watched Enemy at the Gates, and he does that jump and he gets like shot. It's a really good shot actually, which is a pretty good film. But I don't think we could rip off any more scenes off Enemy in the Gates in gaming, because we pretty much rip off the whole film. Especially Call of Duty, they just hug that to itself. And this is an alright sniper section. You just gotta. It's pretty basic, really. You've done this kind of stuff before, except the snipers are very deadly in this game. They're not the snipers off. Actually, they're quite similar to the snipers in Uncharted 1 to 4, and that is useless. What I love about the snipers in those games is, as long as you're rolling about, they will never hit you. They're terrible. It takes them a year to get that laser dot on you and then actually pull the trigger, which is nice and forgiving, because most games aren't like that. But I guess talking about Resistance is somewhere to start, because there are some similarities, you know, in terms of the amount of weapons that this game has, and all of them, well, most of them having secondary fire and stuff like that. Being a classic game, I think the secondary fire in this game for a sniper rifle is just to aim down sight, and that didn't used to be a basic feature until Call of Duty sort of made that a thing. But Resistance, yeah, I'm a big fan of Resistance 1 and 2. Not so much 3. 3 let me down in a lot of ways. I think 3 is a very good game and I had a lot of fun playing it. But to say I was satisfied by it would be a complete and utter lie, I think. It did let me down because what I loved about Resistance 1 and 2 is just these absolutely massive battles. Just mad. And this translated well into multiplayer, particularly Resistance 2. I think it had like 6 players. I don't think it was 6 players, I think it was 40 players. And it did it all at a super smooth frame rate. It was just mental. And obviously the graphics took a hell of a hit, because the graphics in the first 2 games are pretty crap. And the same for 3. But you really didn't mind, because it's the least important part of the game. And the game itself was fantastic. If you wanted the amazing graphics and cool battles, go play Killzone. They were perfect, those two. Perfect to release on the PS3. Really good system sellers, I think. You know, can't make your own Halo, so make 2 games that aren't quite up to the level of Halo, but are brilliant in their own right. It's a surefire plan, isn't it, to success. But yeah, Resistance 2 was... I don't really know what people's opinions are on Resistance. If you're a fan of Resistance, please let me know and have a discussion, because I don't know where most people stand on the series. I know a lot of people don't like 1 and 2 but like 3, which is bizarre to me. I know there's a lot of people that don't like 2 but they like 1 and 3. I don't know if there's that much people that rant about 2 in a good way, because I do. I think 2 is fantastic. Sure, not being able to carry all the guns is a real annoyance. I'm not a big fan of that. Like, they really should have had the weapon wheel. But just the stuff that Resistance 2 made you do, and some of the moments literally made my jaw drop. I picked up Resistance 1 and 2 at a similar time. I picked them up in, like, I want to say 2011, so quite late when the third one was coming out in like that summer. And I just played through them and I absolutely adored them. They were both absolutely fantastic games. Loved them from start to finish. Because I did get Resistance Fall of Man, the first one, with my PS3, but I was a bit of a wimp and the game scared me. I did the first 3 levels, and then the part in Grimsby where you've been captured and you get all these creepy ones that just like jump on you. And you got to shake the controller because they wanted to show off that it was motion sickness or whatever it was called. They wanted to show that you could shake it and it'd have an effect on game, but I didn't like that. That got to me. Ended up selling the game, but got it years later again. I'm really glad I did because I loved it. And if we ever got that trilogy, I'd love that trilogy to be brought on PS4. Absolutely die for it. I would want Resistance 1 to have a co-op campaign, like it already does, but I want it to be made online. That would be the only thing I would change about Resistance 1. And if possible, Resistance 2 campaign co-op. Although you have the awesome co-op mode anyway, but I would have liked that game to be co-op campaign. I think it would still work. I mean, perhaps that big enemy, whatever it is, you know, when it throws you from like hotel to hotel on the roofs. Perhaps that would need to be changed so that you could actually have 2 players. But hey, you can throw 2 of you, can't you? But just, yeah, those games would be great co-op, because I've never got to play Resistance 1 co-op. It's a big thing that's upset me, as my least favourite enemies of this game arrive yet again. I absolutely hate them. It's one thing for that rubbish machine guns used for those mowing these down because of the bullet spread and how many bullets you get. God, they just scare me, these things. This is actually a quite tough section of the game, and if you die you're going to have to go back a fair few minutes actually. But I was just saying, Resistance, yeah, glad I played it, and Resistance 3, I don't know if I ever finished it on co-op. I'm sure I played it with Warrior. Me and Warrior X played it a few times. It was something we wanted to do put on our old channel that we had years ago. Don't know if we ever finished it together though. We might have done. I certainly remember doing like the end of the game co-op, but whether we did the whole thing, I can't be sure, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, Resistance 3 though, let's talk about that ending, because that ending was awful. What a terrible way to end the trilogy. Just, the third one sets up that this whole situation is bleak and we're not going to beat the Chimera. Is that what they were called? Yeah. Chimera, whatever. And you just beat them out of nowhere, and it turns out they lost. Like, there were so many places that series could go, and you could still do a Resistance 4 easy within the series on plot. Like, you wouldn't even have to stretch it a little bit. You could just simply make it so the original Chimera come back, and you could even fight as the new Chimera, the ones that you'd been fighting in the games, fighting them. I don't know, you could do anything, because it had actually... Resistance has a really interesting lore, but they just hide it away, which is a problem with a lot of games, actually. And it's a big shame, because it'd have been nice to explore it more. I felt that we miss... Can't get my words right. Right, why? We messed up. They messed up. Sorry, finally got it. They messed up big time. There's such a lot of stuff that happened between Resistance 2 and 3, which in itself could be a game, because there was such a gap in the story, because I think it's 4 years, like 1953 to 1957, and like the whole system's like changed. Like there's no more longer a military, you're now just living on the outskirts. The Chimera have like started fighting each other. Just so much cool stuff, and I think the game there was. I don't know whether they felt they had to make it just a trilogy and not carry it on, and whether they just felt compelled to end the series, because it's a real shame. Like, I know it has to end at some point, but that game could have gone on for a few games more. I would have welcomed it. Was there anybody that felt that Resistance ended at the right time? Don't get me wrong, they didn't drag the series on at least, and it wasn't like, oh my god, can the series just end now please? Like, at least it ends on somewhat of like, oh yeah, it was a good series, a good trilogy, and it doesn't get dragged on. You know, it doesn't just drag on for ages, because, I mean, there's a few series like that, isn't there? But I don't think, was anybody calling for Resistance to come to an end? Because I certainly wasn't. I remember in the build-up, and they were like, oh, this is the last one, by the way. And I was like, what? How are they going to end it? Like, I still don't see why we can't get prequels and spin-offs by somebody other than Insomniac Games, I think it is. I don't know, what have Insomniac been doing recently? I think they did that Sunset Overdrive, which was really cool, but that was on the Xbox One. So I didn't get to play that, unfortunately. But it's a shame, we had that and Killzone, and those were two really strong shooters in the day. You know, both coming out at similar times, with Killzone 2 and Resistance 2 releasing very similar. And then they both got disappointing ends to both of their trilogies, with Killzone 3 and Resistance 3. Again, pretty good games, and if they were to come out now, I think people would praise them as being amazing. But at the time they were slightly disappointing compared to the second installments we got, and it was a really weird phase where in 2009 and 2008 we got 2s to everything, like Modern Warfare 2s, you know, Resistance 2, Killzone 2. I said, and I can't really think of any. It was Uncharted 2, that was a big one. And in 2011 we got the freeze to pretty much all of those games, and they were all disappointments in comparison to the second one, literally all of them. But again, it depends on whose opinion you listen to. Some people tell you Resistance 3 is miles better than Resistance 2, and as I said before, I don't understand that, but that's just how people feel. It's opinions, isn't it? And either way, did all of those series end with 3? Apart from Uncharted, obviously. Although it looked like for some time that would be the end of that series, at least for a while, 'cause it took such a long time to get Uncharted 4, and when it did come, it was a very different game to what I was expecting. And like the Uncharted 4 we got was quite a difference to the first 3. And recently, the details of what the original story were quite interesting, actually. They were going to have half the game where you didn't use a gun, because they were going to address the whole fact that Nathan Drake is a bloody mass murderer, genocide. It probably makes like the Nazis in like Wolfenstein look pretty passive. So they were going to have half the game where you literally had to rely on melee combat, which isn't that hard to think, because Uncharted 3 they really expanded this. And yeah, Uncharted's an interesting one. My favourite is still Uncharted 2. Loved Uncharted 4, but I prefer 2. Don't like 3, like most people. There are parts of 3 I like, but mainly anything with Charlie Cutter. Which I loved about Uncharted 4, by the way, the fact you could play as pretty much any character from any of the games, pretty much, apart from obviously like Golden Abyss. Because I always play as Charlie Cutter if I'm playing as like the hero. So if I play as the villains, I like to play as Eddie Raja, because I quite like Eddie Raja. I mean, who else are you going to play as? Gabriel Roman? I would play as Harry Flynn, but anyone that knows Uncharted 4 multiplayer and that situation with Harry Flynn and his voice actor will know that's not happening. That's a no-go zone. Because we've not got bags of skill here. I'm not even going to try and do the impression, just because... if you don't know, just look up bags of skill. And that's a running joke between me and my friends by far. Like we do this joke of like, we like to imagine certain cutscenes in the second one where instead of saying anything, he would just say bags and bags of skill. So for instance, if you know Uncharted 2 when Harry and Drake first meet, we have this idea that Drake's drinking his beer, and then Harry Flynn shows up next to him and just goes bags, and then Nathan Drake would go, Harry Flynn? He just knows that's him. He just said bags. But that's always a running joke that me and a couple of mates we always run with. I'll just be quiet for this cutscene, I think.
One of my spies reported in. Molov's making good on his threat. He's using nanotechnology to process a new kind of soldier. One who is smart, strong, and totally loyal to Molov. With an army like that at his back, we'll never be able to defeat him. We have only one chance.
Well, that's bags for you. It's literally a running joke, and what's funny about it is literally people who don't even really know Uncharted have found it funny. And we finally get the railgun, which we just saw there with Echo getting killed. If you didn't know Echo, that's not a surprise. I mean, don't worry, you're not supposed to care. The railgun is, that's probably the most iconic gun from the series, at least the first one. I think it's a lot cooler in the first one, actually. I mean, it's better in the second one in the sense that you don't have to reload after every shot, but the scope isn't as cool because it doesn't like show the enemies through the walls. It just shows a blimp, a dot, which is a bit underwhelming because the first one you could see the full outline. And in the first one, like, such a pain. And it's my favourite enemies are back. I genuinely thought these enemies were unlimited. And it led to a death of mine because I just tried to run through them. But they do stop, so just keep mowing these down. But yeah, the railgun was such a pain in the first game because that killed you instantly. And the enemies had no problem using it through walls. And that's a game where you've got to save to hit your own checkpoints. If you die, you go back to your last save. Even though it has like the breakup like this game does of like having loading sections, those don't count as save points. You don't go back to them when you die. So yeah, that's a fun part. Like Red Faction 1's an interesting one. Like this game, the difficulty ramps up, but that game's a lot more steep and it kills you instantly because the mercs come into the story and they're a hell of a lot harder to kill than the Ultar Corporation. How do you say that? Ultar. I think it's Ultar. Ignore that word. The main bad guys, the guys that are blue. The Tories, yeah, the Tories are easy and then the mercenaries come in. But we're coming to the end of this level, guys, because all you got to do is find your way down this hole. And you've done level 7, which I think is quite a cool level. It's where the game definitely shifts. Level 8's a tricky one. We're going to get our first proper boss fight in that one. So that could be a section where you actually might need some help. So I'll take you through that because I used to struggle with Quill, but after some time I got used to beating her and I've got a pretty good strategy. It's actually quite a simple fight once you get down to it. It's just getting the rhythm. Like all boss fights, but that has been the end of level 7, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this commentary and this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.